Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack for Business podcast. Over 350 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game.
Question for the audience. How do you make smart real estate decisions that protect your finances and attract the right buyer without getting lost in the emotional chaos of moving? That's exactly what Eric will talk about in this episode. With a global perspective, a background in high net worth investment advising, and over a decade of real estate success, Eric breaks down what buyers really want, what turns them off, and how sellers can market their home like a pro. If you're a startup founder or a small business owner thinking of relocating, investing, or just selling smart. Our guest today is Eric Perron from Engel & Volkers. We welcome Eric, an award-winning real estate professional with a truly global perspective. Born in France and raised around the world as the son of a Canadian ambassador, Eric's firsthand experience with relocation gives him the rare insight into emotional and practical sides of moving. With a background in high net worth investment at RBC and Dominion Securities, Eric brings financial acumen and trusted guidance to every client. Since stepping into real estate in 2010, he's built a stellar reputation across Ottawa, known for his 95% repeat and referral rate and a genuine passion for helping others. Whether it's his professional real estate negotiation designation, his support for causes like Operation Underground Rescue and CHIO, or the Ironman drive that he brings to every transaction, Eric is a community-minded professional committed to delivering exceptional results. Eric, welcome. It's good to have you here. And do you have a favorite quote or saying, sir?
I do, and thank you for having me, Bernie and Wayne. I really appreciate your time. So my favorite quote is an Ironman quote: everything you can do in sports, business, anything else. And the quote is simply this: anything is possible.
I like that. So you've traveled the world. This is really, usually the people that travel like that are usually in the Canadian Armed Forces here in Canada. They get to travel, but you're a part of the, what's it called?
Global affairs. Yeah. So my family was a diplomat. And my father, when he was in university, all he ever wanted to do was become a Canadian ambassador. For him, he thought, you'll travel the world, you get to travel and experience so many different cultures, so many different countries. And we're talking in the late 60s. So opening up your world outside of Canada was tremendous for him. He met my mom in university. They got married. And in 71, I was born in Paris. So that was his first posting. And it was interesting because his father was also a general in the Canadian Army, and he became the military attaché for Canada in France in, I think, the early 50s. So the whole family was a lot of travel, and we always had that bug of adventure and the bug of learning different cultures, different people, different foods. Foods is a big part of my life. Having that bug was really neat.
So you went from being on the road, getting to get some really great experiences in the city of love to be born, to getting into the finance space. What brought you into the finance space?
What was interesting, I'll always remember it. I was working for a company called More Business Forms. I was literally creating business forms. Remember back in the day when it was dot matrix, you had those little circles on the side, and then we were merging over towards laser print checks. I was designing checks, and More Business Forms had all the security stuff. What ended up happening is, believe it or not, I was at a Calgary Hockey Flames game in Calgary because I was living there at the time. And there was an investment advisor sitting beside me, and he was talking about his business. And it just really all of a sudden appealed to me. I was like, wow, I can become an advisor to people. I can take care of probably their biggest asset. I can take care of them, build their retirement, make sure that they're not getting swindled by different schemes. There's a lot of investment out there that is trying to grab your money, and then all of a sudden people don't have it anymore. And I just thought, wow, this person works at Dominion Securities, top firm on the street at the time, still is. And I thought, you know what, that's something I should do. I should look into that. So I looked into it and called Ottawa because my parents were retiring in Ottawa. They were still overseas. They were in South Korea at the time. And I thought, you know what, it'd be awesome to be in the same city as them. So I became an investment advisor and did that for 10 years. I just really wanted to be a part of somebody's growth. And funny enough, I really just wanted to take care of them and make sure they had the best information they could.
People who are buying or selling homes think it's a rational decision. And we know that people don't buy rationally. They buy emotionally. What are the hot buttons, or even better, the hidden hot buttons that are driving people they don't even know are driving?
It's interesting, right? People don't see what they don't see. And sometimes the advisor has to point it out. What is driving the buyer today? The buyer today really, out of everything that's going on in the world, needs security. They need to feel like when they walk in that door, they feel secure. They feel at home. They feel like they can have their morning coffee. They feel like they can take care of their dog and bring them down a decent park or a decent off-leash park. They feel like they totally envision their families, which is what I'm working with a lot right now, really just feeling safe and secure and feeling that, wow, this is pride of ownership. This is me. It really becomes that kind of thing, as opposed to what you just said, right? Where it's just a transaction. It's not just a transaction. People are not just buying homes and saying, oh, that'll do. I'll make do with it. It's always, I got to change this. I got to change that. I got to change this. I got to change that. So when you neutralize a home as a seller, you're allowing yourself then to be able to sell a home to more buyers, because buyers will be able to see themselves more in that house. Good question.
A quick message. Got a mug in hand? Good, because freshly brewed coaching is best served with your favorite roast. Join Wayne Pratt and Matt Hawksley as they spill the beans on how everyday pros, just like you, can use real coaching tools to level up their careers, teams, and mindset. It's bold, it's real, it's freshly brewed. Grab your free shot of clarity at freshlybrewedcoaching.com.
The one thing I find, and I hear this from other people that are selling content, services, products, not real estate, but know your buyer, right? And know what they're looking for. What aren't they looking for? What are the things, geez, that's not a feature you want to sell, or that's not a feature you want to promote. You can't change the sow ear into the sow purse.
Yeah.
But it's not the feature that you want to promote.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that's why a good realtor, professional realtor, can really help. As an example, when we go into a lot of homes today, you're going to see that there's no television on the main floor, because a lot of these new floor plans, they just don't have space for a TV. So you have a kitchen, dining area, a living area, and then you have the gas fireplace, and people walk in, they go, wow, this is beautiful. I can imagine my kids playing here while I'm cooking and I'm doing this. And then I always bring up the fact, I say, what about the TV? Where would you put the TV? Oh, this floor plan doesn't work. All right, then we have to move on. Little things like that. The other one is location. As an example, my brother's taught me a lot of things in my life. He's a couple of years older than me. And one of the things that when he was in a house, he didn't like the sunken living room. People walk into a house, they take their step down, they go in the living room. And I said, okay, now imagine you're doing that 10 times a day. Is that something that you would enjoy doing, or is that something that you might not like? And 9 times out of 10, they say, yeah, no, I wouldn't like that. So it's bringing up things that people may not have seen. When you're staging a home, you want to alleviate all of those things. Oftentimes, if I can, I make sure that the TV is there and that we've staged it where it needs to be, so that when the buyer walks in, they see it and they feel it and they say, yeah, that's the perfect spot for it. The other thing is, I've done things where, for example, we've done staging for homes. Somebody's lived in it for 10 years. And I say, listen, we're going to completely change where all the furniture is. Why? I've been here for 10 years. It's been amazing and everything looks great. But once you become a seller, you are selling a commodity. You're no longer selling the memories of your home. You're no longer selling the emotions of that home. You've had those moments and those were all beautiful. Carry those forward into your next property, but don't allow that to cloud the sale of your property, because that unfortunately is going to go against you. As an example, I'll move all the furniture around. And my next conversation with that client is, Eric, you should have been here 10 years ago. My bedroom feels like I sleep so much better. I just feel more relaxed. So once again, right, that's that thing of helping the homeowner or helping the buyer see what they need to see. So location ends up being a huge factor in real estate. Location. I tend to like old school lessons and old school values and old school things. And old school, you know what? It really works. Old school absolutely works. Location is absolutely number one. So you got to know Where are you buying? Are you near electrical lines? Is that going to turn off some buyers? Is there a pool? One of the biggest turnoffs, and it's such a simple thing, is pride of ownership. We'll go into homes and they'll be dirty. Hood fans will be greasy. The light switches, as an example, that's one of my pet peeves. When you go to a light switch and there's a little bit of that brown stuff that's on there that's not cleaned properly, it makes a difference. And it's such a tiny factor. You'll go into a home that's $1 million, $2 million home. And sometimes, unfortunately, they'll say, yeah, the house is spotless, it's clean. And you'll see those things. You'll also see the light switches will be those cream colored 1980s fashion.
You don't like the gold fridges and the avocado stoves?
Gorgeous, gorgeous. The plum and so you know what? Those are just tiny little things that are turnoffs. If you're even going to have an older home, but you've repainted it, change the outlet to a beautiful, nice white outlet. Like, it's really super simple. So I think cleanliness is one of the biggest turnoffs you're going to get with buyers. Yeah. Oh, the other one I wanted to mention too was DIY jobs. So if you have an owner that's really, yeah, exactly, right? I hear the laughs already. So if you have an owner and they've done a ton of DIY jobs, they've done the crown molding and they're super, super crazy happy about it, but there's gaps in between things. The painting has drips that are painting down it. What it does, unfortunately, is it shows the buyer, guess what? I did a lot of the work on my house on my own and I didn't know what I was doing. So then the buyer sits there and says, well, I just went through this like literally a week ago. What else could there be in this house, Eric? In your experience, what else could you see? The buyer is not having a good experience in this home. They're trying to mitigate any future problems. Do you think that buyer is going to want to buy that house? No way. It's already way down on the totem pole because they just don't know what else to look for. So that one's interesting. And I had that same couple ask me a question. They said, Eric, what else should I know? And I said, you know what? You should know that if it doesn't feel right, you got to walk away. That's really simple. And then the question was, I don't want to walk away from a good thing. I said, well, you got to go with your gut sometimes. We just don't know what else is out there until we do a home inspection. So hopefully that answers a bit.
Eric, I was raised by realtors. And in the 60s and 70s, a realtor needed a Rolodex, a sign, and a 2-pound fudge. Those were his tools. They didn't have cell phones then. What's the realtor use for tools now that's different than the realtor of the 80s?
You know, you'll love this. So my ex-father-in-law was a realtor in the 80s as well. So he can't believe some of the things that are going on right now. I think right now, the biggest thing is speed and the speed of communication. And that doesn't mean being on 24/7. It means making sure that you are able to readily have information available and disseminate it. As an example, I use DocuSign for all of my electronic signatures. Trying to remember how many years ago, was it 6 or 7 years ago? Finally, Ontario was allowing electronic signatures for real estate transactions. When I joined the business 14 years ago, I bought the iPhone. Everybody was using BlackBerry. From my iPhone, I was able to scan documents and email them and text them. From my iPhone, I was able to have PDF Expert, which is a software that I use. I do all of my editing, like list prices and offer prices and offer dates. And if I get a counter offer from the other side, I can do it on my phone, scratch things out, put numbers in. Then I can extract it as a flat PDF for security. And then I can move it over to DocuSign. And then from DocuSign, my client can sign it. Once my client signs a notice of fulfillment of conditions, they're entering into a final sale, accepting all the conditions. Once they sign it, then the listing agent is able to receive it and countersign it as well, meaning that they've acknowledged it. And when you think of that versus the 80s, I can do everything from the backseat of my car. I hook up my laptop to the phone and I can work, I can phone call, I can video, I can email, I can text. It's ridiculous how much you can do. I just did a deal with somebody who's overseas. They were able to get the documents overseas. We were able to use WhatsApp for face, video, and audio. They got their mortgage done. They got the inspection done. They have a lawyer in Ottawa, all that, and they're sitting overseas. That's pretty cool. I did a deal 8 years ago, and my client was literally on the beach of Ecuador. So we said at 4:30 every day, because he was selling his property, make sure you get on to, I think it was Apple FaceTime we were using. And every day at 4:30, he'd be sitting with his big ear talking to me, and we sold his property. It's pretty cool. And the trust factor, right? When your clients trust you implicitly, it's awesome because then you can use all of these things to show them exactly how you're taking care of them, how you're protecting their transaction, how you're protecting their biggest asset. So I think that's a lot of stuff that has changed.
In the real estate market, the shift, again, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, now in the 2020s era, a lot of things have moved around. And sometimes you've added services, which are awesome. This is a two-part question. You've added services, it makes that curb appeal more poignant, more sensory input. And at the same time, there's also people leveraging those being malfeasant, for lack of better words. Either the homeowners doing a con or someone is not the homeowner and then trying to flip the house. How do you manage bringing that technology, which is, I think, awesome? I've seen some of the stuff that you've done to help promote a house. How do you leverage that? Does that help make it more legit? Does that help you identify, no, you don't own the house? What are you doing? How do you sort through that?
Good question. I'm trying to see how I'm going to answer that one.
I'm looking at the time going, I need to touch this and I need to touch this.
Yeah, I dent a lot. That's why.
I'm just trying to tease with the.
So the question is, from a buyer's side, how do I make sure that the seller is legit?
Think of all the different ways for somebody that is trying to pull the wool over someone's eyes. Whether it's the seller going, don't look over here, it's my DIY project, versus the person going, you know what? I don't own the house, but I'm going to sell it. I got a bridge in Brooklyn, right?
I got an interesting couple of stories for you. One, I had a call. I literally just arrived in my driveway at home. I got a call and it was like, hey, I've got a house that I want to sell and it's a bungalow. I'm interviewing different agents. He tells me, go to the house. There's a lockbox on it. This is the number of the lockbox. Go and have a look at it. Give me a call and tell me what you think. And I'm thinking, I don't know who this guy is. He's not in Ottawa. He's in another city, but in a Canadian city. I verified the number. So I went, do the lockbox. I walk in and of course I'm worried about fraud and everything else. I'm like, hello, is anybody home? And no, it was all staged. There was nobody home. I call him back and give him the rundown. And anyway, I ended up getting his name, ended up getting his company name. I ended up going on the Canadian Registry of Incorporated Companies and finding all of the information I could. I then called my lawyer that I use for real estate, and then I refer out to my clients. And I said, hey, listen, what do I do here? He moved it over to his corporate lawyer who verified a lot of information. Then I said to the individual, we need to meet face to face. And I will need your ID and some information. At Engel and Volkers, we're now using a company called Illumini, which is fantastic. In this situation, I scanned his driver's license. When I scanned it, it goes to the Department of Transportation and it verifies the driver's license, name, photo, everything. And I asked my lawyer, I said, if I verify him through this system, will that be good enough to make sure that he's a legitimate person? And they said, yeah, of course, absolutely. So that's how we verified the individual. Because if I list a home and I sell a home of an individual who's not a true seller, guess who gets sued? I do, because I haven't done my due diligence. So that once again leads into that trust of why clients use me and why I have that 95% rate of referral rate and repeat businesses. They know I go that extra mile to make sure that I have protected them, not only because I don't want to get sued, but because I want to protect my client, whether it's on the buying side or the selling side. And individually, what we just did, this client I mentioned just a couple of weeks back, I had to send him a link. He holds your passport and your face in the same image, and your webcam from your laptop or your phone, it takes a picture and it verifies the individual. And that's how this individual was verified for the purchase of a property. It's pretty neat.
Wow. So we covered the hoodwink group. Now, from the other side of the fence, you use drones, for example. What are the tools in the kit that you now are able to leverage? You maybe couldn't 5 years ago, or wasn't prominent, or wasn't thought of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think real estate videos were just starting to come out. And as a video tells a story, right? A picture on MLS is interesting. And in the old days, you didn't even have online pictures. You had a book. You'd get your roll of film, go to the store, you'd get them developed, you'd put them in the book, and then those books would be disseminated to other real estate offices in Ottawa. So now what's amazing is I can do a neighborhood video and say, hey, by the way, like the last video I did, I said, hey, there's all of these different local businesses. I love local businesses and I'm always trying to promote them on my videos. So this one was in Stittsville. So I promoted the Next Restaurant, which I think is delicious food. It's amazing. And then Equator Coffee Shop is around the corner. So I make sure that from a selling side, I'm selling the home, which is a commodity brick and mortar, but there's also emotion involved, right? So when a viewer sees the video, they go, oh, wow, I love coffee. And guess what? Equator is freshly ground coffee. Oh, wow, even better. Now I can get a freshly ground, freshly roasted coffee. I'm going to live in this beautiful home. And then I'm going to be able to go for restaurants. And then, of course, there's schools and parks in the area. So the video is helping me attract more sellers as well, because they say, you know what, when I saw your video, you really showed off the house. The video wasn't about you, the realtor. The video was about your client and your client's house and what they have to sell. And that's really important. It was interesting. The CEO of Engel and Volkers, I was down in New York City, and a phenomenal guy, Andrew Hitt, and he came to talk to us for 45 minutes, and he just reiterated what I always believed and what I always did. He goes, as a realtor, you can sell the most insane properties. You can be the most successful realtor. But the one thing you always have to remember is when you're selling somebody's home, you're not promoting yourself as a realtor. You're promoting the sale of that house for your client. When that house sells, that's when you start promoting yourself and patting yourself on the back and saying, geez, I did a great job for my client. While you're taking care of that client, the client wants to know that you are taking care of them wholeheartedly and that you're not in it for yourself, right? I'm there to succeed for the client, which obviously makes me succeed as a realtor. So that's an important thing. Photos as well is hugely important. You have a tall ceiling. You don't want the ceiling to be grayed out because the camera couldn't necessarily attract that, right? So my photographer comes in, he takes 3 or 4 photos, and then they blend all of those pictures in. Basically, the human eye can see way more dark and way more light than a camera ever can. So they take the time. Each individual photo is merged together in a high dynamic range. Each photo is actually looked at saying, how could we make this look more like the human eye? We're not making it look like AI because we don't want to make this place look fake and bring somebody to the house who says, you know, how many times do we hear in the media or whatever, oh my God, the house looks like it was twice the size online and I got there and it was 800 square feet. We don't want to embellish that. We want the buyer to truly, from their internet side of things, look at it and say, wow, that was exactly what I felt online. And I feel even better now that I'm in the house. That's what attracts a buyer to give you the offer. Drone is fantastic. Drone is awesome. I did a couple of videos. Wayne, you'd get a kick out of it. I did my niece's house. I was in Perth and I was sitting literally in a hot tub with a hunter's hat on. I had a Perth cold local beer. I had the little yellow rubber duck in there and we overdubbed it. I said, at the end of the day, this house is going to be amazing. You're going to drive here. You're going to be able to have a cold local beer in your hot tub. The drone backs up completely until I'm just a dot on the video. So then all of a sudden it gets to show you this 4-acre property. I was on the 26th floor of the Icon building. I was standing on the balcony. I wore my European hot red pants that were nice and bright. Make sure I was like the red dot in the video. And I was standing there and I said, welcome to the Icon. The drone sees me on a balcony. So you know I'm on a balcony. And by the time it comes out, you're now seeing this 50-story building that is 3/4 of your video screen. It turns around and all is Dow's Lake and the canal and the view. Like we couldn't have done that 4, 5, 6 years ago, but now we can with drone. How exciting is it to start a video like that? That attracts people to that video.
You didn't want to rent a helicopter?
Oh my God, that would have been a lot of fun. So yeah, there's just so much technology in it. It's absolutely increasing all the time. It's awesome.
A lot of people drive by signs and they call the realtor on the sign and they meet the guy and it's very friendly and whatever. And they don't always realize that the realtor is working for the seller, not the buyer. Tell me what you think about buyer's agency and why shouldn't anyone buy a house have their realtor?
So why should a buyer use a buyer's realtor? The buyer realtor is crucially needed because a professional buyer's realtor can see things that the buyer will not see. For example, if I'm going into an old home, I know there are certain things I need to look at. One of which really got affected last summer, is, are all of the floors level? I know it sounds like a weird thing, but I was on a house on Paul Anka and Hunt Club, and I felt like I was in the Crooked Kitchen at the Science Museum. You wouldn't believe it. It was a $980,000 home. We were standing in the kitchen and you could see the front door was like 2-3 feet lower. It was phenomenal. If you can't necessarily feel it, I'll go into some houses, and I'm quite sensitive to this. I'll say, do you feel that the house is slightly off? No, stand over here and then walk over there. Then they do, and they go, whoa. What it means is we now need to investigate the engineering of this home. We now need to see, is this happening on the first level? And if that's happening, is that not happening from the basement? Now, I'm not an engineer, but what I am licensed to do is to bring up certain ideas and say, hey, you know what? We may need to look into this. Is it something that's important to you? The other thing in an older home is there asbestos in the house. I've seen enough asbestos. I can't tell you 100% that it is asbestos, but what I can say is, hey, that white thing that's over there, that might be something that we need to look at. So a buyer realtor is really able to help you look at things that you may not have seen. The TV example is another one. Where would you put your TV? Where do you want your kids to hang out? Do you want it to be here or do you want it to be there? Do you have an office? Do you need it to be 100% quiet? Does it need to be at the front of the house or the back of the house? Where do you like having your coffee? Is it with the sun or with the shade? Personally, I like a south-facing backyard. Some clients don't. It's all those intricacies that we need to bring out as a buyer agent. One example, I had a client, we went through 50 different condos. Now one came up, he hadn't said anything to me yet. And I said, we really need to see this condo. He walked in and immediately said, this is it. This is what I want. Your buyer agent can help you see what you may not have seen. And that's super important.
We mentioned earlier the PREM negotiation. What does that mean? You do hostages too, or you just
There you
turn
go,
apart
right?
the house?
I love Chris Voss. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that name. He's amazing. But Suze Cummings is a woman in Canada who is a phenomenal negotiator. She was a realtor in Toronto, and then she started her own, The Nature of Real Estate is the company that she started, and she does all the negotiations. One day I said, you know what? I've done negotiation courses in the past, never done one for real estate. Why don't I go and see what she's all about? She's incredible. So I did our first negotiation course, then I did the second one, then I did the third one, then I did a refresher course, and that eventually changed, and now it's called the Professional Real Estate Negotiations. What does it do for you? It helps you uncover a lot of different things, and there's a lot of moving parts in real estate. When I'm a realtor for the buyer, I have to take in all of what the buyer is thinking, saying, emotions, and I have to use those, and I have to negotiate on their behalf to get them the best deal I can. Now, all of a sudden, I'm negotiating with the listing agent, right? When I'm negotiating with a listing agent, I have to bring things up. I have to have a conversation. I have to bring up verbiage that can be used and remembered by that person in a way that they can then subconsciously use with their seller client. If I'm able to do that, it means that I'm really working on behalf of my buyer, because guess what? My negotiations is not to the next level. It's to the second deepest level, which is in the end, the actual seller. So when I'm negotiating, I'm trying to learn the other side. What are they like? Are they more engineering type? Are they more amiable? Do they just want the facts? Do they want a story to be told? Do they want the emotions? Should the seller receive a letter from my buyer with a family picture and saying, oh, we love this place because we're going to make beautiful memories? And believe it or not, that still works, right? So when I'm negotiating, that's what the course helps you with. It helps you try and decide and figure out what are all of the factors that you need to consider and negotiate a deal where everybody is able to walk away with some sort of happiness, right? Because you don't want your buyer. Now, on the selling side of things, it's the same thing. How am I going to get the buyer to buy my seller's house? And now I'm speaking with the buyer agent. I now also need to come up with the comparables and say, this is why we're coming here. Would it be crazy? That's a whole Chris Voss thing, right? Would it be crazy for us to think that this price range is adequate for this home in this marketplace? And then when you sit back, say, actually, no, it wouldn't be crazy for you to think that. Oh, okay, great. This is our offer, and these are some of the terms that we have during the offer.
When you're in any business, you get solicited a lot for donations and for time and money. Realtors are encouraged to support your community, and that's fine and good. But you made some choices that are very personal to you. Can you tell me where you pour out your philanthropy and how and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So for 10 years, I was with Remax, and now for the 4 years I've been with Engel and Volkers. Remax was always big for Chio. So we've raised so much money for Chio. And what would happen is every transaction that we would transact, whether on the buying side or the selling side, we would automatically say, take X amount of money or percentage from my check and go directly to Chio. I love supporting Chio. I've supported them throughout many years. But then all of a sudden, I was at a Anthony Robbins Date with Destiny course, and there was a guy that stood up, and it really resonated with me. He was the director for an organization called Operation Underground Rescue, and what that is, it for 12,000-ish US dollars, they have ex-CIA, FBI, military, all that kind of stuff. They go around the world and they take kids out of sexual slavery. For $12,000, they can take a child out of sexual slavery. Having lived in many different countries, we've seen it, we've understood it. It's unbelievable how it still happens in today's world. I made sure it was a legit charity. I gave them my Visa card and I said, every month, take this amount of money out of my Visa card. It's really super simple on the first of the month. And my goal is to get to the 12,000 US dollars. And I feel like I've helped one child. They come out of these situations and it's amazing. What I don't understand is how they come out of these situations and they're smiling. They're smiling because all of a sudden they've been given another chance at life. And so probably no one's heard of the charity in Ottawa. So that's why I went with that particular charity, because I thought, you know what, it's a neat one and it's going to help a child potentially grow up to do really amazing things. Chio gets a lot of money, so I still give a little bit of money to Chio, but I'm giving more money to these guys now because I think that these guys can use it as well.
So Eric, kind of as we're coming to a close in this podcast, there are a lot of different parts. Being a realtor, whether you're for the buyer or the seller, selling a product, someone's residence, or buying someone's residence. You didn't make the widget, but you got to make that widget look appealing to the right customer. And then you have the legislation paperwork that comes with it that keeps everybody safe. You also got to be mindful of, you don't want to be hoodwinked either from either a seller or a buyer or somewhere along the line. What are the key points you would highlight for someone who wants to get into this industry? There are a lot of things you've just described, and we could have gone easily another couple of hours in different directions. What are the key things you'd want to say to somebody? Because at the end of the day, you are in a business, and it's an artful business. But what are the key elements?
So if somebody wanted to get into this business, correct? If somebody's looking to become a realtor, there's a guy down in the States, Brian Buffini, who's been a realtor, and he always says this: everybody wants to be a realtor because they say, I'm going to make my own time. I'll be my own boss. I'll be able to do whatever I want during the day and life will be grand. And it's the absolute complete opposite of that. When I went from finance into real estate, I said, I think real estate will be a lot easier than what I'm doing today in finance. It's a tough business. I tell you, if somebody was coming into the business, the key factors is build your network. You need to build your network with people who can complement you or who are similar to you. And then you have to be utmost sincere. If you don't show sincerity, you're going to be constantly searching for one transaction at a time. You'll have to pay for leads. But if you create a community around you of clients, a community of center of influences who say, yeah, you know what? If you need real estate, go to Eric. You won't have to think of going anywhere else. That's the kind of relationship you're constantly having to work on. And it's a daily thing that you need to work on it. So if you think you're going to sit on the sidelines and just sit on the couch and go, I'm just going to wait for everybody to come to me because I'm the best, it's just not going to happen. If you have an ego and you deal with somebody, guess what? They're going to say, yeah, you can deal with Eric, but he's got an ego. So that's the last thing. You don't want to have an ego in this business. I love Anthony Robbins in so many ways. He says, the best happiness that successful people have, billionaires, millionaires, is when you are of service to others. If you truly can live with that and be happy when you are of service to other people, then you will do really well in this business. So constantly be thinking of that. How can I serve? I tell my employees, my clients, buyers or sellers, I become your employee. How I serve you is up to you, right? So I can help you make all the decisions, or you can make all the decisions with my information. It really depends on the individual. So be of service. That's number one. Network like crazy and do a lot of open houses, be sincere, give people real information that they can use to make a real proper decision.
Now, you're in a licensed profession that actually doesn't let you sell Ecuadorian homes, but how big is your comfortable geography and how do we get a hold of you?
My geography is the world. So I'll tell you why. I do within about an hour and a half of Ottawa. I have a client I bought last year, beautiful home, just near the border of Ontario and Quebec on the way to Montreal. No problems, because I want to work with him. It doesn't really matter where the house is. I helped a client buy a cottage on an island that's 3 hours away that you needed boat access to. I called up the realtor, said, hey, can I rent a boat? I've got my boating license. No, you can't. But you know what? I'll tell you what, my husband will pick you guys up on their boat. So I brought a picnic for everybody and we went to this island. Guess what? They ended up buying it. The other question that was interesting is I had somebody call me say, hey, I've got family in London, England. Guess what? I found them a realtor with Engel & Volkers who's very successful, very sincere. I called London, England, had the conversation with him and referred that realtor to somebody here in Ottawa. Honestly, if I'm driving an hour and a half, maybe 3 hours if I had to, if I'm not driving, it's the entire world. We have a network all over the place. Vancouver, LA, Florida, Texas, you name it. I've made friends in this business through so many different events that I've gone to.
And how do we get a hold of you, Eric?
Oh, easy. You want my phone number online? Yeah.
Up to you.
The best way to do is to call me or text me. That's the easiest way to get my attention. My phone number, my mobile, 613-863-7568. Feel free to email me as well, eric@ericperron.ca. I've got the .ca because I'm a proud Canadian. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to return an email. We get a lot of emails, MLS updates all the time and everything else. You can also reach me on my website. Fill out a form on there, ericperron.ca. So simple to do that. But the easiest way is, shoot me a call or a text. Don't be afraid that I'm too busy. If I can't answer your phone call, leave a message and I'll get back to you within 2 hours, 3 hours max usually.
Eric, what do you see happening in the next 5 years for yourself?
Yeah, I think for myself, right now, I'm trying to grow my business even more. I've done well. I've been very happy with it, but I feel like I have more capacity. So I'm really trying to serve more people through open houses this year. I've made a goal of doing 20 open houses where I get to connect with people. I'd like to start a podcast as well, just like you guys are doing. It's about providing information to people. And I think that's a beautiful thing when you have information that's true and genuine that you can impart. In the next 5 years, I'm actually going to make sure that I schedule holidays more. As a realtor, we work honestly 24/7 if you want to. That's crazy. So a lot of people have always coached me on saying every quarter you should take a week off. Not sure if I'll take a week off, but I'm definitely starting to take days off so that I can reconnect with myself, go out paddleboarding or go biking, and then be with family as well. So that's going to be a big thing on a personal side. I always write a bucket list every year of what I want to accomplish. One of them was to attend more live events. I don't care whether it's a play, whether it's, I went to a contemporary dance last Friday with my girlfriend because she wanted to go to it. This week, we bought tickets to see Andrea Bocelli in Hamilton. I just want to get out there and feel more face-to-face time, more energy with my clients, my family, different events.
I want to say thank you to Eric Perron, my co-host Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. If you're looking to buy a house, Eric's here. He can bring his drone or take great photos of your house, find the perfect buyer.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KRATIVINSIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral in the letter u.ca, or his website motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people: Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert; Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host, Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space, then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You, Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.